Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jackie Rogers. I'm the Dean for Learning and Teaching in the College of Arts, Technology and Environment at UWE Bristol. I'm delighted to welcome our host, our panel, and you, the audience, to the first of our autumn series of BDAS events. This season features an exciting programme of distinguished speakers and insightful panel discussions. We look forward to welcoming you to engage, learn and connect. This evening's event is entitled From Ground to Orbit, Building the Southwest Space Economy. Tonight we'll explore how the Southwest can become a leader in innovation, sustainability and economic growth through space-enabled technologies. You're in for a real treat. We've brought together a distinguished panel of experts who have a range of perspectives from academia, industry and regional initiatives to highlight opportunities for collaboration and future development. I'm sure this will be a fascinating and stimulating evening. But before we proceed, some housekeeping. We're not expecting to have a fire alarm. If the alarm goes off, then please, the exit is over there at the back of the room on the left. This session is going to be recorded and the recording will be made available on our website. The format for this evening will be a panel discussion, which is going to be led by our wonderful host, Becky, and that will go on for about an hour, and then that will be followed by audience Q&A. Afterwards, you're all invited to go into Waterside 2 to grab a drink, for some networking and also to continue discussions. I'll tell you a little bit more about what will happen afterwards when we finish the session. So, on to this evening. So it's my pleasure to be able to introduce the panel. But first, I was a child of the 60s. I grew up with the moon landings, but unlike many of my peers, I was not one of those children who stayed up late to watch the crew of Apollo 13's lunar module Eagle land on the moon. I was interested in other things. But clearly I picked up on the excitement and the opportunities. As I recall, when I was at primary school, we were asked what we wanted to be when we grew up, and I said, an astronaut. Well, I never became an astronaut. I'm an ecologist, but I'm really excited about the opportunities that space technologies offer, and I'm very much looking forward to hearing more from our panel tonight. So without further ado, I'm delighted to introduce tonight's host and the panel. Our host, Becky Huffee, leads Space West, the regional cluster supporting innovation across Swindon, Wiltshire, Bristol, Bath and Gloucestershire. She works collaboratively to accelerate innovation and grow the space sector in the UK. Prior to this, she was Programme Manager for Space and Net Zero at the University of Bristol, engaging with industry and policymakers to support the university's academic community to understand industrial and policy challenges to help deliver innovation for real-world problems. Our panellists. First, Ross Hulbert. Ross is responsible for new business and external partnerships for Spaceport, Cornwall, the UK's horizontal space satellite launch site. Spaceport Cornwall is the UK's first licensed spaceport and Europe's solution for future air and space. Spaceport Cornwall not only hosts satellite launches, but also supports one of the UK's fastest growing space clusters through its dedicated research and development and business facilities. Next, you have to put your hand up because I can't put to the right people. So first of all, there we are. And then Simon Wheeler. Simon is Vice President of Software at reOrbit, bringing nearly 30 years' experience across the space and technology sectors. He's a highly experienced developer, team leader and manager, covering the full software product lifecycle. And this is alongside his technical background. Simon is skilled in presenting to stakeholders and engaging with external suppliers and customers to identify and deliver innovative solutions. His team continues to play a significant role in driving forward software development for next-generation space systems. Next, Chris Toomer. Chris is Associate Professor in Aerospace at the University of the West of England. She specialises in hypersonic thermodynamics, in space manufacture and access to space research. She began her career at Imperial College London with a doctorate in global atmospheric modelling, followed by postdoctoral work in astrophysics. She later worked in industry with BAE. Her current research builds on that foundation, focusing on space access and advanced aerospace applications. And last, but by no means least, is Kim Lake. Kim is a highly experienced leader in space systems and optical engineering, with a career spanning over a decade across Europe's leading aerospace and defence organisations. Currently serving as Head of Science and Earth Observation Projects at OHB Space UK, overseeing the delivery of a complex missions driving innovation in Earth observation and space science. Holding a PhD in quantum technology, Kim combines deep technical expertise with proven leadership in managing multidisciplinary teams, driving innovation, and delivering innovative optical and space systems. So a pretty smart group of people that you've got talking to you today. So I'd now like to hand over to our host, Becky, to start this evening's proceedings. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jackie. So to kind of set the scene a little bit, I thought I might just help people to try to understand where the Southwest is in the space sector and a bit of the heritage and history that we have here in the Southwest. So before I get started, just for context, the space sector is worth about 18 billion to the UK economy and employs about 55,000 people across the UK. And it's largely highly skilled, good quality jobs. The Southwest is the third largest space region, housing over about 300 space-related businesses and organisations. And I have the pleasure of running our regional space cluster. So we're going to step back to the late 1960s, early 1970s, and we're going to start with Black Arrow, because the Southwest had a big role in the development of the Black Arrow launch vehicle. That was developed by Sanders Roe, and actually the Sanders Roe Rocket Development Division actually sat in Yeovil. I only discovered this the other night when I was looking up facts and figures for this. And in fact, Black Arrow's final flight, and the only successful launch that it had, was in 1971, and it placed the Prospero satellite into low Earth orbit, and that was the first and only fully UK launched manufactured satellite and launch system that's ever happened. Sadly enough, that was decommissioned after that, but actually not only did the development of that rocket system take place in Yeovil, it also had the third stage developed just down the road in Banwell, so by an organisation called Bristol Aerojet. I'm going to move through to the 1980s now, where I'm going to talk a little bit about the horizontal takeoff and landing HOTOL system, which was a British-designed space plane developed in the mid-1980s. The aircraft was designed to be a single-stage-to-orbit vehicle that was powered by an air-breathing jet engine designed by Rolls-Royce. And that a lot of the work for that and the development for that took place down the road in Filton. And that's kind of the birth of the Reaction Engine Company. And that, although the Reaction Engine Company has kind of fallen into administration, the capability and expertise that sits within that organisation, a lot of that has actually moved back to Bristol with Fraser Nash Consulting as they're developing their Invictus programme, which is quite exciting. So although some of these things start and kind of fall back down, the capability and his expertise that gets developed within these organisations lives on and gets carried through into new programmes. Down in Cornwall, where Ross is from, we had the first UK licensed Spaceport and the first UK sovereign launch in January 2023. Its unique capability, not just for launch, but also hypersonics and drone testing and evaluation. And that's a really kind of exciting part of the space economy. We're seeing this launch sector developing, and a lot of the capability that is being developed actually sits across this region, across the aerospace heritage that we have here. going to move on a little bit to about 20 years ago. So I'm kind of taking leaps of decades. But about 20 years ago, a team of engineers in Bristol started to prepare for the EarthCare mission with the aim of bidding to win the contract design and build one of the 4 instruments on the satellite. Now, the aim of the EarthCare mission, so it's a European Space Agency mission, and the aim of that mission is to improve the understanding of cloud, radiative, and aerosol processes within the Earth's atmosphere. So really important for our understanding of climate change. And that organisation was, who developed that proposal was SEA, and there was a little bit of contention, and there was around winning that bid. They won the bid for the broadband radiometer, and that was the smallest of the 4 instruments. But that paved the way for a new organisation who came in and took that over. That was Thales Linear Space, and we have 2 people who were previously at TAS. But ultimately, the expertise that were developed through that programme also supported a lot of the development of the other instruments that happened elsewhere within the UK, but were actually incorporated into the mission. So that capability supported all of those other instruments that were on board on the EarthCare mission that was launched, I think, late 2024. So these things can take quite a long time to build. So despite the fact that they proposed the concept 20 years ago, it's only just been launched. We also had in this region an organisation called CISIS, which was taken over by CGI in 2020, who worked on the ExoMars mission. And in fact, Simon was part of that team. And it's not my fault. It's all good, it's all good. And then other really important parts of our space economy in the region are things like the Met Office. We kind of forget how important those organisations are, not just to our everyday lives and how space technologies support the work that they do, but also the work that they do around space weather, and they host the Space Weather Operating Centre, which is one of a handful of centres that work 24/7 around the globe to do space weather prediction, which is really, really important in helping protect space assets so that we can take mitigating actions if, for example, there is a space weather event that could damage our space assets. So that just is kind of to give you a little bit of flavour in terms of why the Southwest is really important, where it's come from. I'm now going to kind of move on to some questions and have a little bit of a discussion with our panel, but I hope that sets the scene. And I'm going to start by trying to help everybody understand what each of our panellists think about the space sector and why everyday people should care about the space sector and what excites them about it. So I'm going to start with Ross. Why should people care about the space sector and what excites you about it?
Well, I think I seem to have this conversation all the time as far as how is space relevant to people's lives. I think, especially working at a launch site, people concentrate on the hardware, which is, I'm sure there's colleagues here who work in the upstream part of the sector, but the big opportunity is the downstream, is all the products and services and applications that we use satellites for. And I think the best way, to communicate to people the value of space is if we just turned it off for a day. And then people would see how they rely on satellites every single minute of their lives. Obviously, we can't turn it off for a day. I think it's important for places like Cornwall. We're here talking about the Southwest, but it still took me 3 hours to drive here from Newquay, and it's not as if Newquay's even the southwestern point of Cornwall. So we've got some strategic assets in Cornwall and across the rest of the Southwest, but principally the Spaceport, Goonhilly Earth Station, National Drone Hub, which are impossible to replicate elsewhere. A lot of that is a fluke of geography, which is actually good for us because often our geography counts against us in Cornwall when it comes to other sectors. So I think, banging that drum about making people aware of like the value of space to their lives is really, I guess, like the point of events like this. And again, because of the Cornwall factor, what excites me is to see an opportunity like space in Cornwall, not just at Spaceport Cornwall, but the businesses that have been excited about what we're doing and therefore have located on site, and then to see the schools and the colleges. We've got a dedicated education program, so we have kids and students. We had 110 girls from a Cornish charity called Tech Girls up last week doing a whole range of mad activities. But just that sort of thing of going into schools and saying, like, who wants to work in the space sector? Of course, they all get really excited. And then that's when you hand over to the universities and the colleges, who, from the moment we spoke about this opportunity at Spaceport Cornwall, immediately started investing in these courses. Because otherwise you sort of get people's hopes up, and then, of course, they actually can't access these opportunities. So thankfully now Cornwall is one of the few places in the country where you can get anything from an apprenticeship right up to a postgraduate qualification, which means that these just at the spaceport we've got about sort of 15 businesses employing over 100 people, and while there are challenges to recruiting engineers and skilled people, which is across the sector, the vast majority of these people were able to find in Cornwall, or at least in the southwest. So that's really exciting to see a place like Cornwall have these really high value opportunities, because for generations, including myself, I was invited here from an ex-colleague I met when I was working in London. It was like you finished school or university, and you really, if you wanted an exciting career, you had to leave. So it's great to see these opportunities coming back to the southwest.
Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting you saying that if we turned off space for a day, how would everybody survive? I think it's about £1 billion to the economy. If we would lose from the economy if we lost our GPS services. So it's really, really critical in terms of our everyday lives. Simon, what are your thoughts?
Hello, everyone. I'm starting to regret the conversation we had before we had this, because you said everything. But, no, it's for myself. I didn't come from a space background when I was going to university. I have a degree in cybernetics, which doesn't mean anything to anybody, and didn't mean much to me at the time either. So I kind of fell into this industry. But space is really cool. At the end of the day, you get to do a lot of interesting stuff, and you quite often you don't see it as you're going through and doing the work, but at the end of the day you get to do the work that you're doing, stick it on a rocket and launch it into space, and either it's successful or it blows up, and it's really fun either way. And there's an advantage if it blows up, is that you can get claimed insurance on it as well, and no one knows if it works or not. But it's that exciting thing, and what I've tried to do in more recent times is to interact with students and young school children as well, and get them excited in these things. And it's again, you get that sense of thing as well from my side, is you see in their eyes the spark going off and the light bulb going up, and they have all these fantastic ideas that come. And these also come from other people as well who don't have a background in technology or engineering and space, but it's listening to them too and having all these ideas come at you, and you see how they fit. And it's one thing I was doing, is going to universities and going to see other businesses who aren't anything to do with space, but then listening to what they have that they are doing, and then immediately finding ways that fits into the space industry and how we can make use of those technologies. And it's very exciting to do that.
Thank you. Kim, what are your thoughts? You come from a slightly different organisation, and what that organisation does, it might be good to kind of give some context on that.
So what excites me about space, well, I'm going to continue on Simon's lines. Space is cool. I mean, an example that didn't come up in your list, but we've, in recent years, a lot of people from Bristol have been quite integral to a mission known as Plateau, which will launch next year. So Plateau is it's a sort of array of telescopes that will be launched to look for exoplanets, outside of our solar system. Now that is just cool. We're looking for things that will expand our knowledge of science and of the universe, just for the good of mankind. I mean, how is that not exciting?
It's true, absolutely. And I think that sometimes we forget about, within the industry, we talk about space, and often we think about the commercial side, and people forget to talk about just the joy of learning and what it serves for mankind. So, I absolutely see that. Chris, what are your thoughts on that? What gets you excited about space, and why do you think people should care? It's on.
It's on, is it? It is. Right, Jackie reckoned, what did you say, where it was the Apollo. So I'm the archetypal sort of space cadet. From the moment I was toddling that high, my father was picking me up, taking me downstairs, putting me onto the settee and said, watch that TV. It was black and white. A lot of people here wouldn't even know that TVs were black and white, but they were black and white then, and people were bouncing around. And Dad said, this is the most important thing that humans have ever achieved. And I was, sort of, about 3-4 years old or whatever. And it stuck with me. So from that age, I knew what I wanted to be. Even before I went to school, I knew that I wanted to help to explore, because it was a place of so much potential. And that's as I started off as a kid. Yes, it was about exploration, Star Trek in a way, that sort of who knows what's going to be there. And then when I got to be more in school and realised that the first challenge we needed was to get into space, and that was where the love for space planes came from. If we couldn't get out of the planet, how could we take anything out to actually protect ourselves if something was heading in our direction? And we're still a bit dodgy on that as to whether we would be able to protect ourselves against some big rocks heading our way. But then, in more recent times, I think where I've suddenly found, if you like, the greatest inspiration, in a sense, is what we can do when we're in space. The medical parts that we can do, the research that we do at UWE for new materials in space manufacturing procedures. This sort of idea that we can actually develop technology in ways that we're not able to do here. So for me, it's a potential not just for security of the planet, not just to improve the way we live, but it's also to give us a chance to develop technologies to enrich life, which at the moment we may not have sort of fully exploited, shall we say. We still have diseases we can't solve. We still have materials that we need to build better aeroplanes and better space and whatever. So it's that potential I like. And that links then to the people. I think there's so much that we can do with people. There's so much opportunity there. It just widens and broadens every opportunity, every topic that you're interested in.
Absolutely, and I think that bit about the microgravity environment that can enable us to explore new technologies that we have terrestrially in new ways in space, that's really exciting, and we're seeing lots of innovation from reOrbit and Spaceport in that area as well. And actually, bizarrely enough, we didn't touch on the really important element of space in supporting our understanding of climate and managing risk and resilience around climate, and our ability to be able to respond quickly when we're dealing with these extreme weather events, for example. And I think Simon said, a little bit in terms of the defence, the role that space plays in national security and defence. It'd be good if you could touch on that a little bit.
Yep, so it's an unfortunate topic because it has to be talked about. But and I would urge everybody, if I'm assuming most people haven't read the Strategic Defence Review, you should all read it. However,
not tonight.
Not tonight. So the company I work for at the moment, reOrbit, is a Finnish-based company, and the Finnish have a fantastic statement, which I'm not going to try to say in Finnish because I'm not going to do it. But the translation is that if we're prepared, we don't have any concern. And that really is the statement that we need to be looking at for national security, which is with the ever-changing world and our previous reliance on the US, which is now disappearing, which has a big advantage for the skills gap that we have. But it's important that we look at the sovereignty of what we have so that we can maintain our mobile phones, so we can maintain our GPS, so that we can maintain the way that we live day to day, so that our fire department works, so that our ambulances can get where they need to get to, and those kinds of atmospheres. And if we don't protect those assets, then we risk a lot.
Absolutely, and I think all of us can see in the way our adversaries are approaching how they attack us. They're not necessarily conducting modern warfare in the way we've seen it before. It's economic destabilisation. We see people targeting Jaguar Land Rover, Marks and Spencer's, Co-op in those cyber attacks, and it would be very easy to then think about how they could attack space assets as well. So we do really need to think about that and think about our role in this as in the Southwest in that space as well. We're going to go, you touched on skills there, and skills is a persistent issue across, I suppose, all advanced manufacturing sectors and innovative technology sectors. But how have you guys seen, in your time working in the space sector, how has the workforce changed? And what role do you see universities playing in working more closely with industry to accelerate the Southwest's space sector? I'm going to go to you first, Chris, because coming from a university, you've probably got some thoughts about that.
I think the one thing that strikes me about how things have changed over the last few decades is if I think back to somewhere like the 80s, the actual opportunities that were in the space sector were very limited in this country. It was much more to do with observation, much more to do with climate, remote sensing. If you look at what's happened now, we have opened up a lot of those careers, including the rockets and the propulsion sector. We also have, I mean, how many people did we say? 50,000, 52,000 now in space, in this working in the space sector in this country at the moment. It's a rapid rise. So it's not just the applications, it's not just the observations, it's building the satellites, it's building the sensors, it's building even towards now going towards building the rockets. We are covering such a wide range. So that's the one thing that strikes me, is that we've gone into a much more, almost like holistic. We are looking at almost every type of job you can imagine, which means that the opportunity for people coming out of university and those people developing their careers is so much better than it's ever been for decades now. So that's the one thing that strikes me. The second thing is that we do have a lot of demand for people. In universities, space is one of the most popular subjects now in engineering. It's gone from, particularly in this area where we consider ourselves very aero, space is now up and coming, it's recognised, and I think when I was graduating, a job in space, if you weren't in observation, was considered a little bit, you weren't being very sensible. Now, people say, yes, you can have a fantastic career. We desperately want rocket scientists. We desperately want people to look at space robotics, you name it. Every aspect is there. And that's one thing that we have to cater for now within the universities. And if you look at the universities, there's a massive rise in the number of courses, the number of opportunities, the number of competitions, the number of lecturers, the number of PhDs. Every aspect now is gearing up over this country to, if you like, have wonderful opportunities to try and deal with the number of people needed in industry in this country because of the rise of the companies. I think we've got more SMEs in this country, startups, than any country in Europe. So we have a very different environment in our companies in this country than many other of our friends, if you like, across the continent and in the other continents.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, no, absolutely. And it was interesting what you were touching on in terms of that broad base, that diversity of areas within the sector has expanded. Universities are having to move quickly to accommodate that and almost do that future thinking and looking at the technologies that are coming through and being adopted in the space sector, like in in space assembly and manufacture, how do we make sure we have the skilled workforce? And I know that you've been involved in some of the foresighting work that's being done across the sector to actually think about how do we define what those skills are that we're going to need in the future, and then help universities to develop the curriculum around that. Kim, I wonder from your perspective, from an industry perspective, how you've seen the workforce change, and perhaps one of the challenges that you have maybe with working with universities and academia to help inform what they're doing.
So, I mean, the workforce has changed. Well, by what you were saying, it's the requirement for workforce has got bigger, but the people coming out of universities haven't necessarily risen at the same rate, which has created a skills gap, certainly. I mean, I think what's potentially needed going forward is more more industry connections to universities, probably more on the way of industry fellowships or years in industry, just so that the people coming out of universities are more able to hit the ground running when they go into their careers.
And I think there are some programs like the spin turn programs that have been developed that support students that are seeking to go into the space sector and learn about the space sector. But I think there's probably still
placements.
Sorry?
We really need placements, and that's something that there across the country, the number of students that desperately want to go and have some experience in industry during their degree, whether it's 1 year or whether it's sectioned even in the summer, it is very, very difficult for a lot of them to get that. And we need, as you say, we need industry, which is very difficult when you've got lots of SMEs to ask of that. But that's what we need for the future as these SMEs grow bigger and bigger. We need to open it up so that the students can have that opportunity to link in with industry earlier than at the moment they're able to do.
And I think that's an action for me to take away.
I just add to that, as industry, to help enable that, what we need is more sort of support from, because to take on a summer student, there's a lot of internal work. So it'd be good to get additional support to do that.
And I think that's where the Catapult programme did help industry to bring those spin turns in. Any thoughts from you, Simon, on that? Because I know that you've previously done quite a lot of work with the student community in the region.
I like doing it, right? It's a lot of fun, and it makes me... what you get out of it from the point of view of someone who's been doing this for quite a long time is seeing other people be excited about what it is that you're doing. And I think coming out of a big company like Thales Alenia Space, which it's very difficult to make these things happen, you have to just do it. There isn't any funding to do it. It never really will be. It relies on individuals to just go and do it. And I had a reason to do it because I was trying to hire people into my department. And we need the young people to come through with all the fresh ideas. But there are many ways to do that you don't really realise. Like, for example, ESA have in Harwell, which is not the southwest, but let's try to change that. But ESA at least have a spaceship programme there, which has got the best of the best interns that I've done some work with as well for robotics, which was born out of their mineralogy lab. So it's, again, all these different things connecting. We don't need to necessarily talk to just space students, or in my case, software students. It's all the different ideas that come from other places that feed into what we can do. And really, we become the enablers then about how do these technologies go forward to make things better for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to speak to a kindred spirit. So I'm not officially a space geek. My background, I used to be a chemistry teacher, actually. Didn't mention that, did I, Jackie? And I know that, Ross, your background's quite different. And what advice would you have for young people who are looking to get into the space sector, but don't have that STEM background? Because I think we've spoken to the skills gap, particularly around the STEM subjects. But yeah, I don't know what your thoughts there, Ross.
Yeah, well, I think the space industry is so visual. Like when people think of space, they think of rockets taking off from launch pads, and therefore that's the only skills that we need. I mean, in my own sort of like career journey, my first job was working for a newspaper. I wasn't a journalist. No one questioned why I was going to the newspaper building. Equally, then I worked for a publishing house and I wasn't an editor, and that wasn't a problem either. But then if you work in the space sector and you're not a rocket engineer, people wonder what you're doing. But we need all the skills that any other sector has, you know, like marketeers. We need HR people, sales people at the airport, which we heavily rely on when we do something technical. We need all those operational people, and all normal skills as well. And if I think about the companies that are located on site with us, some of them are pretty hardcore STEM, which of course you want. So Avanti Communications are based with us, and they control their fleet of geostationary satellites in their office. So they're pretty hardcore software and physics guys. But then around the rest of the building, we've got EO companies exploiting satellite data for things like more accurately insuring buildings. They're not, they're just using data. They're part of the space sector. We were talking earlier about storytelling and that communication thing. So Halo Communications are based with us, and they specialise in tech and space, and they represent people like us and Goonhilly and Spaceforge, Astroscale, iSpace. They're, and again, it's needed because a lot of these people are hardcore STEM. They might not have the communication skills to communicate all the wonderful things that they're doing. I've got, there's examples on site. There's a woman working in one of the companies who was employed after finishing a fine art degree because hand-eye coordination of what she was doing in her fine art directly translated over to some of the stuff that they wanted her to do for composite manufacture. I was out walking the dog one morning when a mate I've known for years came up to me and said, I'm going to go and work for Spaceport. I was like, what are you? What are you doing? Well, he spent 10 years working as a surfboard shaper. So it turns out that shaping and laminating skills in the surfboard CNC machine are needed in sort of satellite componentry and things. So I was like, okay, fine. So now he's up there. So, and with the skills gap, I think as well, like the ability to transfer in, like down in Cornwall and Devon with Devonport Dockyard, got a lot of people coming out in the marine sector, working for big companies like Babcock, that a lot of the skills that we need in the space sector. So somebody with some of the skills that you need and a desire to learn and be integrated into your company, you'd be willing to bring them in and train them on the job. But equally, there are lots of opportunities to formally study as well. So if you're not from a STEM background, but you do want to work in that area, you can acquire those skills as well.
Absolutely. And I'm just picking up on that storytelling. I think one of the things that we're not very good at in the space sector is actually communicating effectively with the general public more widely about why space is important. So examples like this evening, we need to be better at telling the story of why space is important to everybody's everyday lives, because ultimately the majority of the space technologies that we developed are paid for by the general public. Most of the funding that we have for space is government funding. So we need to make sure that everybody understands the value of it. And so I think that storytelling piece is really, really important. And I think it's a really fair criticism of the sector, having been relatively new to it, that actually we're not good at going out and we need to be better at telling those stories. So I think that's definitely a way to get into it. So we're going to kind of come back to the Southwest a little bit, and I want to kind of challenge all of you to think about what you think the signature of the Southwest space sector is. I'm basically trying to get them to do my job for me, but we'll ignore that for a minute. So Chris, I'll come to you first and we'll move along from you.
I think if we were here a time ago, it would be easier. I think now I'm going to stick to the fact that we are able to go across so many different types. I suppose one of the most important ones that we do have for defence, so that does link in. I think communications is still strong here, and I think robotics is a particularly good one. We also have quite a good strength on the medical side. I would say, as well, for particularly in terms of things like biosensors, which links in there. That sort of links to maybe the electronic sector as well. I'd like to see the rise of the propulsion coming through, personally, of course I would. And I think we also have a manufacturing base, maybe not unique for these things across the country, but I think we've got something that we can work on very strongly. And as you said, we do have, down next to whatever, we do have the Met Office, and so that does give us a certain amount of links to sustainability and into climate, which I think we also should take advantage of.
Thanks, Chris. Ross, what about you? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well,
On the other end of this area.
Yeah, well, the other end, but my mum is from Filton, so and my dad worked for Rolls-Royce, so every Christmas I got yet another miniature Concorde. And down in Cornwall, of course, we're also very excited about that programme. But everyone tells me, which I actually did some research and I think is impossible, how they used to hear the sonic boom of Concorde every day. And then I thought, yeah, but it wasn't allowed to get that fast, was it, until it got over like the hours are silly. And then I think maybe a few people might have heard it, but I don't know. It just shows how proud we were. So innovation has always been part of the Southwest. I think you're right with defence. I mean, Cornwall, we've got more veterans living in Cornwall than any other part of the UK, with the naval dockyard up in Plymouth, as well as the Marines and RNAS Culdrose down in Cornwall. I think that's going to play an increasingly important point. Sustainability as well. So Spaceport Cornwall, from our very beginnings, it's always been about championing space for good, being more responsible actors in space. The UK have signed the Astra Charter. We're taking space debris awareness seriously. Companies like Astroscale and ClearSpace doing amazing things. So I think that's an opportunity for the UK, but definitely in the Southwest, just because of the beautiful nature of the place that we live.
You just mentioned space debris. We often talk a lot about these kind of topics within the space sector. Are you able to kind of expand on that a little bit for maybe some of the audience that aren't familiar with what space debris is?
Yeah, well, so, I mean, like the name suggests, basically, since the 60s, everything that we've launched, for the most part, is still sort of floating around up there, and there's some terrifying visuals of what the orbits look like, which is bad from an environmental point of view. It's also bad from a commercial point of view, because if you put a billion-pound satellite up into space and it gets clattered with space debris that's blown off a Chinese satellite, that's pretty bad. So the UK government are increasingly setting up space domain awareness programs to sort of track and see these deterrents. But also it's about being responsible and trying to de-orbit some of these things. So I think maybe part of some of this work that's come out of the Astra Charter in the future, I think you're going to have a de-orbit policy. For example, I'm sure there's lots of people in the room who know this already, but previously geostationary satellites, the only requirement was like to push it out into a graveyard orbit. You didn't have to bring it down or do anything, responsible about it. It was just get it out of the way. But now people like Astroscale are developing technologies that they can launch satellites that then can latch on to satellites that are in orbit and bring them back, because it's going to get more and more congested up there if we don't think about what we do about it.
And in the longer term, there is almost an exciting prospect around how can we actually refuel them up there? How could we recycle them and actually kind of have an in-space circular economy? Wouldn't that be exciting?
That takes us to the space manufacturing.
Absolutely. So I think there's a really strong opportunity there. From your perspective, Simon, what do you think the signature of the Southwest is?
Our experience, which I think has gone unnoticed. So when Becky was going through her list of things, I can pretty much note that I worked on every single one of those. And that's just me.
You're not old enough to have worked on Black Arrow. That's a lie.
Not Black Arrow. Not Black Arrow. So I worked on Metersat 2. It's my first entry into space back in 2001. I've worked on EarthCare. I worked on ExoMars, Plateau, a little bit. And more recently, Microcarb, which just launched, which, despite Donald Trump deciding he's going to deorbit all of the climate change satellites, they can't hide from us because we have our own one, which is, thankfully, I think of last month, is actually producing valid data, which is fantastic. And I'm very, very proud of that one because in 2017, when I joined TAS, I attended the AOT readiness review for that, which is when they were about to start building the spacecraft. And my last day at TAS was launch day.
That's pretty exciting.
It took 7 years to launch that satellite, but that's crazy. But the amount of experience we've got in terms of not only building spacecraft, not only doing the software for them, which is what my team do, not only doing the systems design, which is what Kim does, but also the management of all of those, and also working with other countries. UK, despite Brexit, which personally I did not agree with, it puts us in a unique position in that we are well positioned to be a bridge between the EU and the other countries as well. And we're very much seen in that light. And that brings all of these things through in these locations. If we just need to get Bristol Airport improved. I need my flights to Finland direct.
I'm not sure I'm going to be able to manage that one. Kim, any thoughts from you? Maybe from a kind of signature in the southwest, but also Kim's company, OHB, have recently invested, as have reOrbit, in the region. It'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on the signature in the southwest, and from that kind of company perspective, what is it that attracted them to the southwest?
I mean, the southwest has it's got the heritage of all of these projects you talk about. And with that heritage comes the experience and the people. So the southwest, one of the real things going for it is the people. I mean, not just the people that have worked in the industry, the people in general. I mean, look at the engagement we got here today. You know, it's a lot of people have showed up. You know, the people in the southwest just really seem engaged, and that they want to know what's going on and want to be involved, which is brilliant to see.
And increasingly, that's what I'm seeing in my role, is actually when I try to describe the unique capability that we have, it all just comes down to the people and the community that we have and experience that we have in the southwest. And when I speak to, and I often work with the combined authority to support investment into our region from international companies, and one of the key reasons that people want to come here is because they can see the talent pool that we have. We have 3 outstanding world-class universities on our doorstep that I work very closely with as the Space West Cluster Lead. And I don't mean to sound like this, but they are churning out outstanding students in those STEM subjects that feed the space sector, which is one of the difficulties in some of the other regional clusters, is they haven't got that feed of students and talent pool that we're so lucky to have in this region. And I get very excited about that. But I'm going to move slightly more to think about the future. So we've kind of talked about the past and what our current kind of position is in the southwest. I wonder whether you can think about what trends are you seeing, and what do you think in the space sector and perhaps outside that you think will shape the future space economy? I'm going to go with you, Kim, first.
She's fair. I mean, obviously, can't avoid AI. It's coming in force. I mean, AI is going to change a lot of how we work, how we produce satellites, how we use the data. Should hopefully speed everything up. Just in general, the trend is going towards faster, leaner. Looking. People look a lot over at America at SpaceX, and want for more of that kind of model.
Simon, any thoughts from you?
I can slightly contradict Kim.
You were going to have a fight tonight.
What I'm seeing from my end is a more commercialization side of things. So you've got a good point with Elon Musk, with SpaceX, but he offers a very specific thing, which he offers a service. So he has his own satellites, his own fleet of satellites, and you have to pay him to use them. And what my company is doing is the opposite of that entirely. We will provide you satellites and a ground system, and we'll give it to you and train you how to use it. So it's not just that one market, but it's more of a commercial market rather than what we were before, which was an industrial market. And that is not working where it is today. And this is a direct reason why Thales Alenia Space ended up where it has, is because that way of working doesn't work so much when governments aren't willing to fund it as well as they have been in the past. So a move away from reliance on that, I think, is important.
Okay. Ross and then Chris, any thoughts about what you think the future space economy is going to be like?
Well, I think we're sort of at the beginning now of space becoming much more routine, and we've all spoken about how cool space is and how exciting space is, and one of the reasons we think that is because it doesn't happen very often out of the UK. We've only done one launch out of Cornwall. Saxford are looking to do their first one next year. We speak about SpaceX. We know when we go to conferences in the US and there's a launch from Kennedy, all the Europeans disappear because we're all so excited to see a launch. They come back wide-eyed, and the Americans don't even look out the window because it happens every other day. My colleague was asked to give a presentation up at Harwell about exactly this, like the future of the space sector. What's it going to look like? And he sort of roped them along for a little while in anticipation of flicking to his next slide, and it was just a FedEx airplane, as in just logistics. Just becoming routine. We will more regularly access the environment of space for things like in-orbit manufacturing, like Space Forge and others. It will become just integrated part of our daily lives. It will be like how the roads revolutionised transport, how Wi-Fi enabled all technology. At the moment, we're sort of focused on the cool thing about space, but eventually it will just become completely part of our lives, and then hopefully we won't have to keep reminding everyone of the value of it.
Okay, so you're looking forward to a future where it's no longer the final frontier and it's just our everyday lives. What about you, Chris? What are your thoughts?
I think it's going to take a while before it's not the final frontier. I think it's the activities in space operations, in space research, new products coming through, whole new companies, new sort of living spaces up there, people who are going to go up and down as a regular event, part of their job, space tourism. I think we're going to see a lot of activity up there as well, and the rise of teleoperation. So the teleoperation, the robotics, the AI and everything else will, I think, mean that there's a lot more activity going up there. But I hope there's going to be a lot of new discoveries which will benefit everyone as well. So I hope it's not completely mundane and a glorified sort of bus route up there. I hope that we get something back which is truly beneficial and
Absolutely.
something that we wouldn't have otherwise.
Absolutely. And I wonder if you kind of look on that horizon and go, but there's a few bumps in the road, some barriers and challenges that we've got to sort out in the UK if we really want to have a thriving future space economy. What are your thoughts there? One
problem we've got is a large distance. So, for example, if we were going to go and grab something out of the Oort cloud and have all sorts of wonderful mineral deposits, we are not particularly up at the moment to be able to travel that sort of distance. I mean, to be able to use a rocket is not so good. Our ion thrusters are coming, but they need to be souped up a lot more. So that's one thing that's holding us back.
The propulsion systems.
Propulsion systems, materials is obviously another one.
Okay, any thoughts from... I wonder if there's any kind of systemic issues in the UK that you think, Simon, from your perspective, you think need to be addressed in order to really turbocharge, as the government like to say, our space economy?
Well, the last 3 years have been quite turbulent for the space industry in the UK. However, there is a glimmer of hope that comes out the back end of that, which is actually a refocus on kind of where the Southwest was before, with SEA and SICES working together. It was a nice partnership of medium-sized companies. What we're seeing now is a reordering of how the funding streams come through. And then there's the greater emphasis on the things that are important to the people of the UK that we need to address. The incorporation of space into every other domain, which is now noted at government level. It's not separate anymore, which we see through now the merging of UK Space Agency with DCIT, is an important step forward to making sure that all those areas work together and that it's not seen as a separate technology anymore. And I think that will be very positive, and it's being viewed very positively from other countries who want to invest in this country, which can be seen from our two companies. That's exactly what has happened. And it's because the skills are here, it's because the expertise and the technology is here.
Brilliant, thank you. So you see it as a positive, which is really good.
I'm trying to be positive.
Oh, good. Kim, thoughts from you?
So, I mean, one challenge, which, again, I'm going to spin it positive. It's a challenge, but I think in the southwest we're very well placed to overcome it, is we need to work together as an industry more. So industry, academia, government all need to collaborate, work together towards the common goals, which I think particularly in the southwest we're very well placed to do with our universities and company relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the big challenges historically we've had is almost government tend to keep industry at arm's length, and actually we really need to see this as a UK-wide enterprise, and we're working collectively towards some really clear strategic goals. And it's really good that we've now got some of those strategic goals from government, because we've got the National Space Strategy, and then they've done a piece of work which is the Space Strategy in action, and the Space Industry Plan, where they've articulated the capabilities they want the UK to have. And that's actually that's coming a long way. We've never had that before in the UK, and now we're kind of looking forward to seeing that delivery part of that. And I think bringing together DSIT and UKSA, despite the news articles about it, I think in the industry it's been pretty welcome that we'll see a bit of a one government approach. So, final 2 minutes from everybody. If you could leave the audience with one message about the future of Southwest in space, what would it be? I'm not going to go to Chris first because she's busy coughing. Ross, go for you.
I think it's about celebrating a lot of the unique capabilities that we have here. And I know that Bristol is much more sort of connected to the rest of the country maybe than Cornwall. But, just to keep repeating to government and to industry partners about what we have here, whether that's Spaceport, whether that's Goonhilly, whether that's our defence capability. And I think the opportunities as well to come and get involved in the space sector, and just any sort of students here thinking about moving into the sector. I've only been in the sector myself sort of 6 or 7 years. What a friendly and welcoming sector it is. I think there is the biggest cliche in space is that people say space is a team sport. But it is sort of true. Like, everybody does collaborate, mainly because, of course, very few of us are big enough to do it all by ourselves. But, for example, in a couple of months, we're off to a conference together as the Southwest Space Partnership. I expect there'll be like 20-odd companies from across the Southwest. And it does feel that we all celebrate one another's successes. We all know each other's pitch. So if someone comes up and wants to know about, what OHB are doing or what one of the other companies are doing, you know enough about them to not say, oh, let me give you a business card and see if they're around later. You actually say, no, let me talk to you about what they're doing. So it is really, really collaborative in that way.
Thanks, Ross. Simon, any thoughts from you? What do you want the audience to go home with tonight and tell everybody?
Space is cool, and you get to blow stuff up, so come and work for us. We have the skills.
He's on a recruitment drive, if you haven't noticed.
I literally am. The capabilities we have, the opportunities we have here to work with very different things. From one day to the next, it's different technologies and things I'd never thought I'd be working on. Examples of grinding lunar regolith up, which I know nothing about, and solar sintering, and all these fantastic terms that I have to kind of pretend I actually understand what they're talking about. I don't really. But it's exciting things you get to learn about. And for anyone who's interested in space, Southwest is a place to be.
Love it. Kim?
So, as adding to what Simon said, space is cool, it's exciting, and it's only going to get bigger in terms of an industry. Spending for space is rising. because space is becoming more of a normal. And it's cool. Come join us.
And from you, Chris, any thoughts?
I think I'm still alive. I apologise, everyone. So, see if we can sum it up. Space is back in the West. It is here to stay. Come and join us.
There we go. And from me, I can only echo Ross's point from a newbie in the space sector. You will never find a friendlier bunch of people and who have all the time in the world to explain everything. There is no stupid question. They are more than happy to talk you through every element. That can be a blessing and a curse, be warned. But it really is a lovely sector to be part of. So do come join us. It is a lovely place to be. So thank you very much. I think I'm handing back to you, Jackie. Is that correct? Oh, no. Q&A, sorry. So, I forgot about that. Questions from the audience. Are there any questions?
Hi. Space is often portrayed as an international collaborative effort for the betterment of humanity. However, international graduates such as myself who are trained here in universities who move here for these opportunities in the space sector or in aerospace, which are essentially non-existent in our home countries, struggle to get equal opportunities due to visa barriers and security clearance and so on. So my question is, how can the Southwest space economy make better use of international talent pool rather than losing it to other countries?
That's a really good question. The point that we're talking about skills, but actually there is an international community that we could be leveraging. Any thoughts from industry side of things?
You get the best results, I find, from a diverse workforce. That's diversity in, all aspects, including sort of nationality. What we need is for industry to, sponsor the visas, and there is a lot of working space that isn't defence. A lot of the science missions don't require security clearance at all. So just keep going, keep applying. There is plenty of opportunity there.
Thanks, Kim. Sorry, go for it.
Hello. I'm interested.
Do you want to take the...
Am I on? Evening. Thank you very much for that very interesting talk. It's quite stimulating. I'm interested in the skills gap that you spoke of. I have a 16-year-old daughter that's trying to decide what career path to follow that's preferably AI-proof, so she's not put out of a job in 5 years. What is the space community doing to engage with the 15 and the 16-year-olds in order that I can nudge her in that direction?
So I think there's a lot of programmes that, say, for example, the UK Space Agency has supported. I'm very, very keen to, in my role, to expand the work that I've done with young people to help them understand pathways into the space sector. So I've done some work with an organisation based at the University of Bath, which is called Career Pilot, which works with a lot of local schools It's an online portal and is used by a lot of the career teams within secondary schools in the region to help them understand some of the pathways into the space sector and the different roles that exist within the space sector. So whether that be climate monitoring, kind of data analysis type roles, all the way to kind of cybersecurity specialists to kind of secure our satellites and things like that. So I've done quite a bit of work with those organisations, but actually what I find, as I said, I'm an ex-teacher, and I actually think one of the things that is critical is actually to support the educators and teachers to better understand career pathways, because it's something that I have misguided lots and lots of young people in the time that I was a teacher. I was a teacher for 14 years because I did not have visibility or an understanding of the career pathways that are available to young people. So there's kind of multiple different ways that I think this needs to be approached. But for me, I think a lot of work needs to be done to actually support teachers to understand routes in.
I'm slightly turned off by being pointed to a website. To me, it's the face-to-face interaction, like today, or the Big Bang, or the whatever. Are there any opportunities there where she can get a face-to-face interaction?
Oh, absolutely. I'm more than happy to speak to any student. I'm probably the most excitable person you can ever find about space.
Okay.
But
I'm
very happy to speak to... But in terms of... That doesn't scale, if you were. So kind of... As I move forward in this role, looking at some of those engagement programs and outreach programs, and there are space STEM programs that go into school and STEM ambassadors that include people from the space sector that actually do go into schools in this region and do some of that work.
Okay, thank you.
Come to the University Open Days. Yeah, but if you go to a number of them, speak to people face to face. Yeah, there's one on Saturday, and there'll be a number of them through the year. And the whole point is that there's a range of different people there, not just somebody to take you around and say, look at this building and this is what we do in our degree. It goes far beyond that. So if your daughter hasn't been invited, if you like, as part of school to go into the universities and sort of do days on whatever, robotics or different subjects to see if they're interested, then go around the different open days that are there, Bristol, Bath. You might have to go online, if you like, and register. But see if you can get that, because that's an open house, and then there's lots of people you can talk to and say, well, if we were to look at this particular degree or topic, where would that lead? And you can ask lots of questions, because that's what the day's about.
We work experience like a lot of times a year, and the sort of like a week at a time, you'll either see different areas of the business. We mentioned the spin term programme, so we've employed a number of spin terms from people just about to finish their final year degree, and they come and work for us straight away, or maybe they were in their first year and they go back, but we stay in contact with them and they support us and they come and speak to students. It's a lot easier, it's a lot better for young people to hear from another young person. And then there've been examples of when 3 years later, when they finally finish their degree, they come and work for us then. So it's never too early to make those links. And like Becky was saying, everybody is friendly and welcoming. So if there's a young girl excited about wanting to be in the space sector, she'll have, be pushing an open door as far as wanting people to come and engage with her.
Absolutely.
Can I just very quick?
Go.
I mean, literally, link in with me, and she can talk to me. See where it goes.
Brilliant.
Any
more?
Sorry, adding to that. People don't need to be afraid to talk to us. We're a lovely bunch of people. Simon, VP of software, he's lovely. I wouldn't be.
Don't oversell it.
Don't be intimidated by people with fancy job titles. We're just we're nice people.
Friendly punch. Yeah.
We're happy to talk to anyone.
Absolutely. Any more questions from the audience?
Hello, yeah. So my name's Gigi. It's not quite a question, but maybe a bit more of a cry for help relating to the education and early careers part. So I kind of tie into a lot of you. I'm a recent graduate from UE. I'm from Cornwall, 40 minutes up the road from Newquay. And I did a work experience with Thales Alenia Space in 2018 in Bristol, which really kick-started. I wouldn't fault the young people's and the school children's outreach to get us into space. Wouldn't fault that at all. The work experience programme got me to go, yep, I'm doing aerospace engineering at uni, which then got me to look at Goonhilly. I tried to get onto a week experience course there, but COVID shut that down, unfortunately. But now I find that I am in the lull. So it's kind of like a cry out for help for maybe you or anyone in the audience who works in industry to try and help the early career pathway. Because I love space. I've done lots of, you mentioned space debris. I did a massive research project on that. So I wanted to get involved in that. But space debris routes in was all like, we want the people who've already got all this experience. Like even emailing people that I knew didn't get me anywhere. They didn't even respond. So it's great that Cornwall is getting, or like the surfer guy is getting a job in space because he knows how to laminate and stuff. But like someone like me who has just come fresh out of uni with no experience, there was nothing, next to nothing for me. In the space, all I found was like EASA or NATO stuff, which we all know how competitive that will be. So just kind of like maybe try and open up the early career route, the fresh out of graduation. But I like what you're doing with the kids. That's really good. The school stuff is good. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that early careers piece is actually quite well understood by UK Space Agency in terms of the reports they've done around skills, and actually it's one of the issues that I think is systemic within the space sector is they want more experienced people to come, but where do you get your experience if you don't get that chance of coming in at a kind of an early stage? Yeah, it's just difficult because they don't have the capacity to support the numbers that are needed. So, yeah, I would absolutely recognise that.
It's also because they've managed to do that. They've managed to go and poach people. And I think it's been well known in the space sector that they wanted, they would go and poach from the automotive rather than take a recent graduate. So the graduates go into other parts and almost like do a couple of years before they can go back towards the space. Mm. But we know that for the last couple of years, this has been one of the major drivers for why the road mappings have been done, why there is the strategy that's come out. Because if you keep doing that, you cannot fill the places. And if we are growing more companies, and if we are beginning to go from small to medium-sized companies, you cannot do that. You have to take graduates, which is why we're seeing the rise now of companies reaching that middle level, like Spaceforge, who have set up their own graduate scheme. MagDrive have done it as well. So it's sort of, how can I put it? You have been left out because of that behaviour, but the opportunities are now starting to be there. So come and make sure you talk to us so that we can start to guide you where there are things that are there. But you're absolutely right. It was the idea of go out somewhere else, get your experience, and then we'll start to bring you in.
I think, Simon, you're going to come in?
Yeah, so big companies, they say they want to do a load of stuff, and then they make a half-assed effort, and then they don't finish it off. But we're not big companies anymore. We're splitting up, and we're now medium-sized companies, which in my experience, has always been the best place to be. I'm sorry about the experience that you had. I don't think you came to work for the software department, so it's not my fault. But the best thing to do in those circumstances is to talk to us. Everyone is really, really busy, and we don't have enough people. And we don't have enough people because we aren't hiring people. But it's a chicken and egg situation, right? So the best thing you can do is what you're doing here, which is challenge us. And then that pushes you to the front of the queue when we're talking to everybody. And same with your daughter, the same thing. Talk to us about it, and then we'll see what we can do about it.
Thank you. I think we're probably one more question.
Seem to have the microphone. Space companies, I know from experience, to grow from small to medium, then medium to large, needs lots of great people, but they also need a lot of cash. So I was wondering what you think about the Southwest environment for attracting funders and investment into space companies, and what else can be done to help get that kind of river of cash flowing into space companies.
So I think that there's quite a recent report in terms of level of investment in the Southwest, not specifically for space, but just more broadly. And actually, the picture is actually pretty good when you compare the Southwest to the rest of the UK, where there has been a kind of flattening of investment into innovation and tech companies. I think there's more work to do. We're hearing from government around picking winners and making sure that we're delivering an investment and crowding in private investment. But I think one of the issues with that is they have to be seen to back it. So, for example, Elon Musk managed to achieve what he has achieved because government invested very early on and quite substantial sums, but also they gave them government contracts early on, which meant that he could crowd in investment. And that's really important. Investors can't invest unless they can see a clear return on investment. And that's where government have to get it right, and we have to work really closely with them to help them understand what they need to be doing as government to make sure that private investment comes in. But absolutely, it is one of the really tricky things, particularly for space companies, because it's so expensive to get the flight heritage that give people the confidence that you as a business can do whatever crazy innovative thing that you hope to do. Sorry, I've just taken that question. Anyone want to add anything on that?
Well, I can
Oh, yeah, of course. But yeah, sorry.
So I work for reOrbit. reOrbit just announced the largest single second-round investment fund, which is 45 million, which is invested. 40% of that is expected to come to the UK, to Bristol. This is all privately invested within the company, so there is no government investment apart from Business Finland, which we have to be very thankful for because they're basically pushing this forward. But they want to invest in the UK specifically because all the Nordic regions are looking at the UK as their route to gaining expertise in space. And that puts us in a big advantage right now. So I'm recruiting. Come work for me.
Has anybody else got any more to add on that question?
I was going to mention this in the challenges, but everyone else was being so positive, so I didn't mention it. But I've had experience with businesses based with us, both companies that have come to the UK for the first time with the promise of government contracts that have not been forthcoming, and then they've left. We've had startups and scale-ups not been able to access enough private investment compared to like the investment community in the US. So either just not being offered anywhere near enough money, or the sort of equity asks from these companies are so exorbitant that it's just they'll just go back to the US. I've had experiences of Cornish space companies then going to the US, having sort of unsuccessfully pitched in the UK and being told to get out the room because they're not asking for enough money. So it's a difficult one. And to slightly contradict myself earlier when I was talking about space becoming routine, I mean, launch anyway isn't commercial yet. Yes, we've got an operational spaceport, but we've not done a launch since 2023. And we're not going to magically get there in this sort of future utopia of space. There's no guarantee that can someone say something after this so we don't end on a negative? But there's no guarantee that the UK will be included in that. The US and India and China and Russia, they might be doing lots of cool stuff in space, but unless the UK government continue to back it and accept the fact that they need to build a future market, we might not be as involved as we want to be. Sorry.
So I think the positive on that is for collectively us all to recognise the value of space and champion it with our local communities so that everyone sees the value of that, because it's really important that government hear that. Thank you. Sorry. And I think that takes us to the close of our questions, and I'm going to hand back to Jackie now. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you, panel, for a fantastically interesting and insightful evening. There's a few takeaways that I've noted down here. I wasn't aware of the Southwest Heritage in Space. Fascinating, thank you. That was a real learning point for me. I've also taken away how much space tech affects us on an everyday. And Simon, please don't turn those satellites off for a day, because that would be a nightmare. I think also I really picked up this discussion about storytelling and we've heard from Chris about space, the moon landings, and how that inspired her into a career in space, and how there's a whole thing around storytelling, around inspiring the next generation. I think there's a storytelling about how we can promote the Southwest as a centre of excellence for space technologies and space sector. So I think there's a really interesting. I would say that you, as a group, I'm thinking, it's fantastically interesting. You're really passionate. You're really enthusiastic. But when you can shout about it, be proud, shout about it. It's inspirational what you're doing, and you're fascinating people. So pick up on that storytelling. I think that's really interesting for future generations and for the current generation and for our graduates here as well. So I've got a huge amount out of this evening. So thank you so much. So thank you to Becky. Thank you to the rest of our panel, and thank you to our audience and the fantastic questions that you have you've brought to this evening. We take the evening to a close, but not a close to the formal proceedings, and now we move into the informal. So I'd like to welcome the audience to join us in Waterside 2, which is just through those doors there. Opportunity to grab a drink, carry on the discussions, to talk about and take further some of the ideas that we've had introduced to us this evening. We also have in Waterside 2 our independent bookstore called Book House, who have curated a series of books for you to look at based on the themes for tonight. And I think, talking about the storytelling, there's some fantastic books there that do some great storytelling. So please do have a look at the books that are available there. We also have back in this room a series of slides, I believe, that have been compiled by the panel members. So grab a drink, have a conversation, carry on with discussions, come back here, watch the slides, have a look at those books and browse through those books that are there. Christmas is coming. Can't say how many days to Christmas, but there's a potential Christmas present that you can pick up there. These events we lay these events on. This is the first event of our autumn series. We really value your feedback on these events. What's worked well, so we can do more of, what things can we improve? So you will be receiving via email a feedback form in a few days' time. Please, if you have the chance, do give us that feedback. We will really, really value it, and it will help us make sure these events continue to work for the people of Bristol and our audiences that join us. This event, as we said, has been recorded, and hopefully no technical hitches, and it therefore will be available in a few days' time on the university website. So if you'd like to see it again and capture some of this really rich discussion, then please do. And to close, we really hope to see you at some of our future events. Please keep an eye out for them. Just sign up through the normal process, and we would really welcome seeing you here again at another time for another fantastic discussion. So can I ask you to say thank you to our panel and hosts in the normal way?